Here's the thing that most money mentors don't tell you. You will only ever receive the amount of money that you feel safe to receive and worthy of receiving. That's it. And those two things will be largely determined by the quality of your relationships with your parents. So in this live series today, this is the last one of the series, I will be sharing with you how the wounds that happened with your father and your mother, how that is essentially impacting your money flow as an adult and how it's showing up for you in your business in terms of self-sabotage. So let me know if any of this resonates with you. So it's quite a big topic, and I would definitely encourage you that if you recognize that you have some wounds there that still need healing, that you come and join me inside the First Generation Academy. It's a 12-month safe space container where we can really dive into these concepts, where I can hold you essentially whilst you go through that work, because where else other than therapy are you going to have the time and space to really connect the dots in a practical way on your childhood and your relationship with money as an adult? And equally, the legacy that you're then leaving for your children and the generations to come. So let's dive into it. So your father wound. Your father, as a masculine energy or person within your life, represents safety. Now, for me, I didn't have a dad because he passed when I was young, and the replacement, shall we say, was not a safe presence in the house. So for me, I had never experienced safety from a masculine presence, which meant then that I never attracted relationships where they were safe either physically, emotionally, mentally, or they just weren't the person that is giving to me. I was very much in my wounded masculine. So if anything, I played the masculine role in our relationship, where I was the one that was doing the most, that was taking charge, that was sorting everything out. I always used to liken myself to Ray Donovan, where I'm like a fixer, just call me Olivia Pope. And I probably really emasculated those people in my relationships but equally I attracted men that were happy to let me do that, that weren't the divine masculine, that were holding space for me, that were made, that essentially meant that it became the self-fulfilling prophecy, and I was a single parent in those relationships. So what can happen when we experience trauma, which could look like an absent parent, rightly or wrongly, my dad was absent. It wasn't his choice, obviously. It could look like having a lack of validation. So if you have a dad who is either overly harsh, critical, and again, bear in mind when we talk about our parents that it's a very different time and generation that they grew up versus the conscious parents that we are these days. So again, do consider it with grace, and that everybody is doing the best that they can with what they have available to them. Extend some compassion. I don't want to, cause issues with parents, but it could be that they were emotionally avoidant, that they weren't there, that they were emotionally distant because that is how they were raised. They could have put a lot of pressure on you to achieve, to be a certain mold of what they believe success was, or they could have been, in my situation, unsafe to have them in the house and have that presence. And I heard once that one of the most dangerous things for a child is to have a step parent in the house who has no genetic investment in them. So let me know if that resonates. How was your dad? Was he a safe, steady, consistent, reliable force in the house that gave you safety and made you feel seen and made you feel supported? Because if not, you can end up in your wounded masculine, like I was, where I essentially in any relationship became the man, where I became the masculine force, where I was the doer. I was the don't worry about it, I don't need anybody. I came up through the generation of the Spice Girls. Let me know if you did the same, where it's like, I don't need a man, I can do it all myself, I'm never going to rely on anybody else. It creates this real hustle, energy, push, force. It's exhausting and it's unnecessary, because in life we're meant to be supported. You're meant to have, in each one of us has masculine and feminine energy, and we all have our own dynamics to play in relationships, and we're not meant to be constantly giving out to others. We're meant to receive. The yin and the yang. You're meant to breathe in and breathe out. You're meant to give and receive in equal balance. So if you don't have that in a relationship, this is what can happen. If that was modeled to you, that in unhealthy ways, then you can also have a real lack of self-trust, with the decisions that you're making. Maybe actually your dad was kind of really overbearing and really strict and didn't ever allow you to test those boundaries, as I've talked about this week, as a teenager. So therefore you don't see yourself as an authority. You're still the little girl or the child that is waiting for your dad's approval. Maybe that was your dynamic and that was your deal that you're now dealing with as an adult. Maybe you were never maybe they were overly critical or overly harsh, where you felt like nothing you did was ever good enough, and equally it will never be good enough. So you are still striving for that approval now, even as an adult, you know, still wanting your dad to kind of be proud of you. And that is real. I see that in my sons, where, you know, one of them is really not that bothered, but the other one is constantly trying to get approval from their dad, because it's part of the dynamics of who we are and how we are meant to have, as I said, that balance of energies in our support system growing up, in our tribal elders as they're kind of represented, and then in ourself, so that we can give to others. So ways that you can think about, if you recognize that some of these things have come up for you in your father wound, it's about reclaiming your own inner self-trust. And I think one of the saddest things that can happen for us as adults is when we don't recognize ourselves as our own authority. And there's so many layers to this, but it can show up for you when you're trying to set goals in your business. Diet starts Monday. If you are constantly that person who doesn't do what they say they're going to do because that is what was modeled to you growing up, then your subconscious brain starts to lean out. It's not even getting behind those goals. It knows that you're not an authority and you don't really mean what you say. So therefore, all these big like desires that are here in your chest, that you're like, oh, I want that thing consciously, like you really want that desire. But if you are the kind of person who never really follows through or does what they say they're going to do, you can't really ever get behind it, because your brain's like, firstly, not going to put energy towards that goal, because what's the point? You never follow through on things anyway. But you're also never going to have safety around it. So, and you're never really going to go all in, and your unconscious brain is going to be undermining you because it just doesn't really see you as an authority, which is the saddest thing for me, I think, for somebody when you, like I say, have those big goals and desires in your chest, consciously you want it, but your brain's already decided that you're not the dedicated adult in that situation, and it's not going to get behind what it is that you want. So part of that is like building up self-trust with the little tiny milestones, with the just becoming that person who is a person of their word. I've always prided myself on that, but to the point of wounded masculine, where I am doing things at 8 months pregnant that I shouldn't be doing, where I have become like the martyr. So do you recognize any of that for yourself? Allow yourself to receive. A part of the masculine is giving to others, and if you haven't had a safe masculine presence who is giving to you without conditions, without needing to validate or prove yourself first, it can be very hard to receive as an adult. So start to, and this is where that kind of FU energy, hustle, wounded masculine energy comes in, where you're like, I'm just going to do it all myself anyway. I don't need somebody else to make me jump through hoops. I can do it all by myself. I say that with my daughter because she has that a little bit where she's like so independent. It's like, just let me help you, let me love you, and she's like, I can do it all by myself. I'm like, for God's sake. But allow yourself to receive. Start to soften, even if it is just allowing a partner to open a door. Yes, we grew up in the generation of Spice Girls where we didn't need a man and we can do everything ourselves, but actually, why not? Why are we making things harder than they need to be? Why are we emasculating our partner and not allowing them to be that divine masculine in our relationship? Why are we finding it so hard to receive? And I guarantee it will be daddy issues that are keeping you stuck. And then finally, let go of that need for validation from others, because you are putting your power outside of yourself. When you are saying that you need somebody else to say that you're okay and that you're good enough, that is not something that you can control. So you are putting your power out and your happiness and your future outside of yourself, and something that you can't control. Start to look for that validation from yourself, essentially. Let's talk about the mother wound, because that is real as well. And you can have two ends of the spectrum, where you have the emotionally avoidant mum So this can be this. So as I've said, the masculine, the father figure in your life represents safety. The feminine represents self-worth. So this is where the feminine in your life is there to nurture, is there to support and ensure your emotional needs are met. And the softer side of parenting, developing your skill set, your desires, your goals, providing safety around those things. And if you had either an emotionally avoidant mum like I did, that grew up without a mum herself, so she didn't know what that looked like. She grew up in a house with like 4 or 5 boys, I think. I can't remember how many brothers she had, but it was her dad and a whole set of boys. So she was raised in the school of hard knocks, where you don't cry and you don't, talk about certain things, and, none of that, equally with a father who was going through trauma because he lost his wife, having to provide, and she didn't have those softer, nurturing elements available to her. She'd never had that model to her because her mum died quite young. So therefore that was the legacy that was left for me then, where actually she had more girls than boys, but she was emotionally avoidant. She didn't know how to deal with that. We never had like those deep, meaningful conversations until much older, when she kind of reinvented herself with my kids. And I'm so grateful that I got that time, because again, she passed young as well, that I got that time with her to have some of those conversations. But again, that was really difficult on me, because I became that emotionally avoidant person where I couldn't deal with, even in relationships, having those difficult conversations. I'm a doer by nature. I've already said I lean towards the wounded masculine tendency. So because I've never had safety in my life growing up, because I never had real parents, and extended family that were there to support me and keep me safe. So therefore, the only person that could keep me safe was me, and that was very much through force. So therefore, even when I started my personal development journey and started to become a more conscious person, and not wanting to pass this on for my kids, and also being obsessed with my kids after years of struggling to become a mum, and not wanting them to suffer in the ways that I did and feel less than I did, I still then struggled to have those conversations. It was so uncomfortable. Like, I can't even tell you, even receiving a hug. I remember one aunt said to me, like, all I want to do is pick you up and give you a hug, and yet I feel like that would traumatize you more because I was so uncomfortable with it. Touch for me is a massive stimulus. There's so many negative connotations with that throughout my childhood and then adulthood as a woman, that it can be a lot when the kids are all wanting to, pull on you. And I know that mums experience this as well. It can be very overstimulating. Touch can be very overstimulating for us, because everybody's constantly pouring at you, basically wanting your time and your physical body and all the things. But that, for me, whenever I feel that uncomfortableness rise, that is an opportunity for growth and healing, because I am not passing that on to my kids. But if you did have either an emotionally avoidant mum like I had, where your needs were deemed to be not important, emotional needs were unmet, you can either have that element where you are very disconnected from yourself, and almost judgment to others that are overly emotional, and you have no tolerance for it, because that just isn't something that would have been safe for you to express as a child. Then you can have that end, or you can have the other end. Sorry. Where maybe you had an overly critical mum who was all up in your grill, that was all over absolutely everything you did, from a place of judgment, criticism, supposedly wanting to keep you safe, but is just so overbearing that you can't move, breathe, and you develop a lot of guilt and shame around your desires, around being your own person, wanting to do things your own way. They have already figured out what is safe for you, and if you deviate from the path, it is just constant narration, constant interference, constant judgment that again makes you second guess yourself, that makes you feel like you are wrong or guilty, or there is something wrong with you inherently. And you can also be disconnected from your own emotional needs. As I mentioned, if you had it the other way, you can end up focusing your energy on everybody else. Maybe you had a martyr mum where she was just so in servitude of everybody else, but almost resentful for it. So therefore, you give, but with a level of resentment where it's like, I'm underappreciated. Nobody, like, you'll undercharge and over deliver, but then hate everybody for it. Even though it's like that's the energy that you're putting out there. Maybe you can have difficulty receiving. This is something that I really struggle with. I was actually going to do a post on it this weekend because it's my birthday, and my daughter wanted to buy me just like a smoothie yesterday, and oh my god, did I struggle because of the guilt of feeling like, I know what she has in her GoHenry account. These bloody things are like £5. That's going to take up like an entire week's pocket money. I don't want her to spend that on me. I don't want her to be without. I need to keep her safe from giving too much. But then I was like, this moral dilemma of like not wanting to take up space, not wanting to receive, not wanting to put anybody out came up for me, even in my own children. But then I was like, actually, what am I modeling? That as a mum, you have to be a martyr, that you can't receive, that you can't have anything, that you're not worthy of having money or time or energy spent on you, that you're not worthy of being seen and taking up space, because that's ultimately what she's going to learn from this lesson. She's trying to give me something and I am rejecting it at every level, albeit in a nicer way than my mum would have done it for me. Because she would have been like, oh, no, don't worry, don't be silly, don't be ridiculous. There would have been a lot of judgment on that. Actually saying that, my mum wasn't like that. She would be like, yes, I'll take it all. And again, because she was coming from a place of lack and not having enough, and, I have a lot of compassion for that. But there were other mums that I spent time with, because obviously I've mentioned that I didn't grow up with my mum. I was kind of bounced around lots of different families, which from my early teens, which meant I had that unique perspective, and there were definitely mums in there that were those martyrs. So, and that is what society kind of expects of us, right? God, this is like a therapy session for myself. And that's the thing, the work is never done. That's why the academy is 12 months. There is no timeline on your healing. This is for you to just continue to do the work and level up, and that's why I've equally opened it to men and women, because there will always be so much more work to do as you kind of reach your next level of awareness, next level of development and growth. There will always be something else that you're like, wow, yeah, that was really fucked up. Didn't realize that at the time. So you could be an overgiver, undercharger, fear of being selfish, feel of not really feeling safe to be seen, feeling guilt or shame around wanting more because you're told to want enough. And will you be happy? That was something that my mum always used to say to me, because it was so alien to her that I would want a career and a partner and my kids and a home. She was constantly trying to get me to just settle, and that came from a place of safety, wanting to keep me safe and learn from her mistakes, because in her mind it will run out. Your good fortune, your good luck will run out. So choose wisely. You can't have it all. Women can't have it all. People can't have it all. You've got to choose. And right now you've got healthy kids, so just be grateful and happy for that. And I have so much compassion for her lens of the world, because she never got to the good bit. She never really pushed herself to want more, and that breaks my heart. But I know that we all have our own soul's contracts and own journey while we're here, and it just wasn't her time. And that's fine. We have a great relationship now, by the way, that she's passed, because she can't answer back. So we're still in constant dialogue. I've got a picture of her right there. It's so funny. So how can we heal that mother wound? It's about learning to nurture yourself. So today I have childcare. The baby is taken care of. I only have like a few hours a day, and it's Friday. So I'm doing this live because I committed to the live series, but now I'm going to get my nails done, because that is the way that I nurture myself, through looking good, feeling good, taking that time. Quiet. No one talks to me when I'm getting my nails done. I don't have to take any children. There's a lot to be said as a mum around peace and quiet and upholding your boundaries. That's another way to heal your mother wound. It's starting to not be so accessible, not allowing everybody to have access to you, carving out time where you are not busy. Not putting all of your self-worth and validation in being busy and how much you can get done. And this is why I think there's a real toxic culture on TikTok and things like that, where it's like, watch me run around my house like an absolute lunatic being productive, when actually, yes, there is a time and a place for that. We need the masculine and the feminine. We need to get shizzle done, but there's also a time for peace. So how about watch me for an hour sit here and do nothing? How about that, TikTok? And I'm just going to have peace and reflect and listen to my own internal guidance and think about what I want for lunch, not planning ahead what 100 other people need for their dinner. What about that? Because all of that is about healing your feminine wound, releasing the guilt around receiving and catching yourself in that moment, cultivating radical self-awareness where you are blocking things from coming to you. Like I said yesterday, realizing that actually that was a moment for me where I was like, no, I'm okay, it's fine, don't worry, I was like, actually no, I will take your smoothie and I will be so grateful and I will love it and it will be amazing. Thank you so much. And changing the narrative in your head and doing the journaling work and reflection work needed to cultivate that radical self-awareness. So this marks the end of my live series this week. If you have enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments. Please go through each of the stages and gift yourself this time to really do the work. This is the work, right? It's not always about just leveling up your mindset and your community. It's also about raising your vibrations and having positive thoughts. It's about doing some of that, shining a light on some of the deep work that needs to happen in order for you to be able to move forward without resistance. So if you have enjoyed if you recognize that you want more and that hasn't been modeled to you in your adult life, then please go back and watch these videos and then equally come and join me inside the First Generation Academy. Even if you have a business or you don't, everybody needs to do this work at some point at every point in their life, at every stage of success. You need to have somewhere that you can go to heal and release, to create space for something new. And that for me is what the Academy is. It's so much more than business strategy. That's why I'm releasing that part last, because until you can provide safety, until you have safety that what you want is safe for you to receive and that you are worthy of receiving it, you will not be able to receive it, or it will only be fleeting, and then either you won't have happiness around receiving it any longer, or something will come up and it will disappear from your life, and you deserve much better than that. My mission is to support more conscious, good-hearted people to make more money and keep it so that they can pay it forwards, and that is how we heal the collective. That's how we make the world a better place, by getting money and power into the right hands. So if any of that sounds good to you right now, please come and join us inside the Academy, and just remember that everybody wins when you do.